take a moment to just pause on the mental health aspect of athletes, because you now emphasize the fact that you were slightly stressed and that contributed to you not performing as well as you should have, or as well as you planned to perform. How important is the mental aspect in the sport of canoeing?
So I think just in sport in general, I think the mental aspect is way more important than what we've ever imagined or thought about. As an athlete, you're trying to be faster, better, stronger, and those are all the things you're focusing on all the time. You wake up, your body's sore. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, I got to get through this training session. If my coach says do this, this is what I got to do. And you feel bad if you miss a session, and if you feel flat, you kind of don't want to, but sometimes your coach says, okay, rather have a rest. And then other days you're feeling good, and then you do a few more pull-ups or a little bit more kilometers on the water, and that's kind of what your brain is focused on. And then planning trips and competitions and packing your bag and flying, and there's so many elements to being an athlete. And the mental health thing, you kind of then don't stop and pause and ask questions. But even if you do, you don't have the answers. And for me, I was really fortunate to have a sports psychologist going into London who was a paddler himself, a really good paddler, 𝗀liche𝗋𝗋. And I really felt like it probably did make a world of difference, but I didn't realize it at the time. And then he actually said to me that perhaps I should be careful about potential like depression after the Olympics, because it's like everything's been on such a high, and then you go through a little bit of a low. And I said to him, 𝗀liche, I don't know what you're talking about. In South Africa, paddling's such a big thing. I'm going to come back and do a river race. And then like, actually, it was such a whirlwind of craziness after getting an Olympic medal that I had no time to let my brain relax. And then, like I said, there was river races, and South African community was so supportive. It's the first Olympic medal for paddling that we've ever had for South Africa and the African continent. So yeah, there was no way that anything would go close to feeling depressed at all for me. And then I was like, well, I want to go to Rio, so let's just carry on. And I think even though I made B finals and I really didn't have bad races in Rio, obviously because of the expectation, I do remember coming back and feeling like, yo, this is hard. And being back home, I feel like I disappointed everyone.
Definitely. And of course, that's such a difficult part for an athlete to also deal with, because that's the mental side of achieving this high in 2012. And then you come back from the next Olympics and things weren't as great as well. But I would love for us to shift the conversation to something that happened this year. Now, you were appointed as the Deputy Chairperson of the Athletes Commission for SASCOC. Tell us a little bit about this new position for you, as well as the journey that lies ahead.
Yes, so it's really exciting to be able to say I'm the vice chair next to 𝗀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹, our silver medalist from Beijing. It's really exciting working with him. He's a very dynamic guy, and we have a very dynamic committee at the moment. So we're definitely going to go from strength to strength, but it's always a commission and a committee that has never had too much of a guideline of exactly what we must do, what our portfolios are. And I remember being on the Tucked Rag committee when I first started studying, and you had a specific portfolio, you had a job, this is what you had to do for the year. And it was kind of like, then you had a few things you could create yourself. So when it comes to the Athletes Commission, I was on it for the previous 4 years, and I never felt like I had an actual specific job. Whereas now, for the first time, we actually had an induction. We decided on what our mission was. There's a few portfolio projects that we want to work on, and we're going to try and meet up again as regularly as we can and discuss things. And we've definitely made some great steps forward to almost reach out to the athletes through webinars already, letting them ask questions, making them aware of who we are. And I think in that process, I think we can only grow and help our athletes in South Africa more so than what we even imagine. Once we start like kind of building on a few elements, and like I said, one of them was a webinar, and now we're having a meeting next week to kind of discuss the Olympics, and we often meet to discuss the clothing that's been selected, and we definitely make sure that the athletes are first priority, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. But I'm also certain that you guys will do great work to ensure that you guys continue to support our athletes as well. I'd like to ask this question. What do you think the future holds for the sport of canoeing in South Africa?
So the future of canoeing is a very diverse one. So we're very fortunate in that sense. But when it comes to sprint canoeing, which I've sort of had as my absolute favorite event, trying to perfect every stroke, having an amazing Hungarian coach, traveling the world, I feel like on that side, it's kind of been dying a little, more because we don't have such a big support structure. And I think that Nando really created that structure for us, created the training camps. We would do them regardless of whether there was money or not, or we would say, this is what we're going to do for the year, this is what we're going to achieve. And now there's lots of small groups of doing it across South Africa, but it's really, really tough because the international world has just stepped up a level, and they keep doing it, and they keep having athletes feeding through the system. The Hungarians maybe have 300, 400 young guppies coming through their system, whether they carry on or not. Every single year, you've got that many paddlers from the clubs collectively, and we might have 20. If we're lucky, 40, you know. I might be underplaying it a little bit, so let's say 50, but 50 compared to maybe 400, it is a big difference. So if you're feeding through so many athletes in a sport code, you for sure going to keep having Olympic champions. But obviously that would have taken time. So I'd like to think that the sprint side of things is going to grow. I know that we've had a big group of youngsters going to what they call Olympic Hopes every year, and you can compete in your age category. So not junior, senior, it's like under 15, under 16, under 17. So it's your actual year, which then obviously makes it less competitive, because you could have one athlete who's pretty good under 17 and under 18 for 2 years. So I think that's promising. But then if you look at our surf ski level, our marathon paddlers, it's absolutely top class. We have youngsters coming through, and especially recently, there's been a big group of female paddlers coming through. So I'd like to say that at least I've been a bit of an inspiration over the years, whether it's me or not. I really think that we have a big group of young talented girls that are focusing and are really good at surf ski and marathon, and maybe somewhere we can tap one of those two into becoming sprinters and maybe another Olympian.
You're locked onto the Sport MVT Insider, a podcast for unrelenting coverage of women in sport. I absolutely love diving deeper into the journeys of our athletes, coaches and administrators to get to know them a little bit better than we do. Coming up this Wednesday is an interesting round of quick fire questions, a great opportunity for some good laughs and some great banter. Keep it locked onto Sport MVT, where we celebrate our women in sport.